16 years ago, a young woman in New Jersey vanished without a trace on a winter night, leaving behind a house with the lights still on and a cup of coffee still steaming on the table. Authorities believed she left voluntarily after a family argument, found no signs of foul play, and the case was quickly closed like thousands of other missing persons files. However, throughout all those long years, one cold case unit investigator never believed she simply disappeared. He was convinced something in her garage had never been explained. Then one day, while reviewing old crime scene photos, he spotted a tiny detail that the entire original team had overlooked. A detail that changed everything and shocked the whole town. Before we dive deep into this truly haunting real story, let us know where you're watching from. And if you love cold cases that get cracked after many years, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next video. December 2009, the state of New Jersey was deep in a bleak winter. The small towns around Mercer County, including Hopewell Township, were quiet and insular, as if untouched by the economic turmoil, casting a shadow across the rest of America. Snow-covered roads wound through suburban neighborhoods, where two-story homes with white picket fences and early-lit Christmas lights created an orderly sense of peace. In that area, the house at 47 Clover Lane belonged to the Hale family, a newly formed household, but the tensions inside were growing more obvious with each passing month. Aaron Bennett, 33, a former Washington State police officer who left the force after an injury, had moved to New Jersey with her new husband, Richard Hale, the principal of a local elementary school. Living with them was Richard's 17-year-old son from a previous relationship, Jonathan, a quiet teenager who often avoided Aaron. On the surface, their life of three seemed stable, but according to friends, arguments between the couple had become more frequent, mostly about money and Aaron's desire to return to her hometown of Spokane. In the second week of December, Erin started packing. She took leave from work, booked a flight to visit her mother, and told a few friends she needed time to think before deciding the future of her marriage. On the evening of December 13th, neighbors saw Erin through the kitchen window talking on the phone. The golden glow of the house lights spilled out into the night. Light snow was falling, the streets were empty, and only Richard's pickup truck sat motionless in the garage. That was the last time anyone saw her. The next morning, Erin never made it to the airport, never called anyone, and her phone was turned off. When her mother in Spokane kept calling with no answer, she started contacting Richard, then the local police. By that afternoon, after nearly a full day with no sign of her, the family officially reported Aaron Bennett missing. The call came into the Hopewell Township Police Department at 5:42 p.m. Snow flurries drifted down, and the yellow streetlights reflected off the icy pavement, making the entire Clover Lane neighborhood feel shrouded in thick fog. Patrol Car 312 was dispatched to the scene, and the two on-duty officers, David Larkin and Angela Moore, arrived at 47 Clover Lane, where Richard Hale was waiting on the porch with his hands stuffed in his coat pockets. The wind was strong, and the snow on the front steps was undisturbed. No fresh footprints. Richard spoke immediately as they approached, saying his wife, Erin Bennett, had left early that morning to catch a flight from Newark to Spokane. But she still hadn't contacted anyone, her phone was off, and the airline confirmed she never checked in. When asked for details, he produced a printout of the e-ticket and said Erin had a small black suitcase, was wearing a thick red coat, blue jeans, and brown leather boots. While Angela took notes, David did a quick sweep of the surroundings. The front door was locked from the inside. No scratches on the frame, windows closed and intact, no pry marks. The garage held two vehicles, Richard's and Erin's silver sedan, registered in her name, both still in place. A thin layer of dust on the garage floor showed no fresh tire tracks. The officers entered the house with the homeowner. The living room lights were on, the fireplace still warm, and on the dining table sat two cooled cups of coffee, one with a lipstick mark. An open suitcase sat in the corner of the sofa with half-folded clothes, her passport and wallet on the table. The house was tidy, nothing out of place, no signs of a struggle or anything broken. David noted, "Seem neat, Indications of voluntary departure or preparation interrupted. Upstairs, the master bedroom looked normal. Bed neatly made. Nightstand empty. Aaron's cell phone nowhere to be found. Police asked Richard for more personal details about his wife. Born 1976, 5'7", about 128 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes, former Washington State police officer, moved to New Jersey 3 years earlier, currently not employed full-time. Richard added that she had friends in Trenton, but none had heard from her since morning. Larkin contacted State Highway Patrol to check I-95 cameras between 4 and 8 a.m., no vehicle matching the plate. The preliminary report concluded, adult missing person, likely voluntary departure, risk level medium. Police completed the initial missing person, Aaron Bennett, file and sent copies to the Mercer County Sheriff's Office. The information was entered into the state's NCIC database, along with a photo provided by Richard. After taking statements inside the house, Angela asked to speak with Jonathan Hale, Richard's son. The teenager appeared tired and said he went to his room early the night before, heard nothing unusual, and when he woke up his dad had already left for work and Aaron was gone. His statement was recorded and signed. Before leaving, the patrol checked the mailbox. Morning mail was still inside, indicating Aaron had not stepped out to get it. An on-scene summary report was compiled, scene stable, no signs of forced entry or violence, property intact, subject's vehicle still on premises, no known means of transportation, departure direction, or witnesses after alleged departure time. Larkin added, weather -3 degrees Celsius, limited visibility, low traffic area, insufficient evidence to open criminal investigation. The file was sent to headquarters at 7:12 p.m. that same day, and Aaron Bennett's disappearance was officially registered in the Hopewell police system. The next morning, Aaron Bennett's missing person file was transferred to the field unit for the first search phase. The Hopewell Township Police Department mobilized local officers, along with neighborhood volunteers on Clover Lane. At 8:30 a.m., the lieutenant in charge held a short briefing in the front yard of number 47 and laid out the plan to sweep a 2-mile radius. A neighborhood map was spread across a patrol car hood, divided into 6 numbered grids, and assigned to each search team. The state's K-9 unit arrived with 2 tracking dogs and started in the backyard, working along the fence line and trails leading to the main road. Morning temperatures had dropped sharply, and thick snow made finding ground traces nearly impossible. Nearby homes were visually checked. Residents confirmed no strangers had been seen overnight. Rescue technicians brought metal detectors and handheld thermal imagers to scan the wooded edges, but nothing registered. Around noon, the dogs were redirected south toward a small park with a frozen stream. Accompanying officers checked the ice. Intact, no cracks or foreign objects. Local streets around Clover Lane were canvassed for private security cameras, but most homes had none. On the main road, patrol cars crawled along checking drains and ditches. Nothing related to Aaron was found. By 2 p.m., the search expanded west toward a small forest and walking trails leading to an old man-made lake. Local rescue teams used GPS units to mark routes, walking in lines 20 meters apart, while continuously calling the victim's name to cue the dogs. Every suspicious spot, abandoned sheds, junked cars, old barns, was opened and checked. No belongings or traces. Police contacted the Mercer County Department of Transportation to see if any accidents or abandoned vehicles had been reported that day. Negative. As the sun dropped and temperatures fell further with heavier snow, the search was suspended. The day's summary report stated clearly, no biological traces, no personal items, no witnesses seeing the victim leave the area. The lieutenant concluded, no basis to determine direction of travel, expand radius tomorrow to include routes toward the Pennington industrial area. Police set up temporary barriers around the Hale house to preserve the scene while continuing to gather information. The evening recap detailed weather conditions, equipment used, and distance covered, 2-mile radius, 6 continuous hours of searching, 0 results. An expansion order was signed that night to cover the entire northern Hopewell residential area and the forested corridor bordering the industrial zone. On the second day after Erin Bennett was reported missing, Hopewell Township Police shifted focus to verifying the final timeline before her disappearance. Lead investigator Lieutenant Craig Harlan compiled a list of 12 people for statements, close neighbors, best friends, former co-workers in Trenton, and several contacts Erin had spoken with in her last week. Interviews were conducted in person and by phone, all recorded, transcribed, and compiled into a detailed timeline. The neighbor to the left, June Keller, confirmed that on Sunday night, just after 9 p.m., the Hale kitchen light was still on, and she saw a woman's silhouette moving near the window before the curtains were drawn. No noise, no strange vehicles. The neighbor across the street, Robert Mills, said around 10 p.m. when he took out the trash, he saw the garage light flick on briefly, then off. Figured Richard was prepping for an early morning and paid no more attention. Erin's best friend Dana Cross said she spoke to Erin at 9:37 p.m. for about 10 minutes. Erin sounded normal, not upset, just mentioned needing a few days in Spokane to rest. When asked about the marriage, Dana said, they argued, but Erin never talked about leaving for good. Harlan contacted Erin's former workplace, a small insurance company in Trenton. HR confirmed she had requested 3 days off without giving a specific reason. The airline confirmed the December 14th morning flight was booked, not canceled, never checked in, no refund processed. Bank records showed no transactions after December 13th, no cash withdrawals, no credit card use anywhere. Harlan had tech services pull cell phone data. Erin's last call was to Dana Cross, after which the device went dark. Location data stopped inside Hopewell Township with no movement outside coverage. Highway cameras on the route to Newark were reviewed. No sign of Erin's silver sedan. Police checked the nearest gas station on that route. No employee remembered anyone matching her description. All information went into a temporary timeline. 9:37 p.m. December 13th. Last call to friend, 10 p.m. Neighbor sees garage light. After that, no further evidence of activity. Morning of December 14th. Per Richard, when he left for work, Erin was still asleep, and no one saw her after that. Harlan noted in the report, no electronic or financial activity after 9:37 p.m. on the 13th, no witness confirmation of departure, no evidence of travel direction. In the day's final assessment, he summarized, estimated disappearance window 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. All sources consistent that Erin showed no signs of planning a sudden exit. Dispatch updated the case status in the central system to missing with unusual circumstances and recommended expanding communication records for any anonymous calls in the same time frame. After finalizing Erin Bennett's movement timeline, Lieutenant Harlan decided to conduct direct interviews with family members, starting with Richard Hale, the last person believed to have seen her. The interview took place at Hopewell Police Headquarters on the third morning, just 2 days after the report. Richard arrived on time, neatly dressed, carrying a folder with the flight printout, photos of Erin and marriage documents. He sat upright, voice calm, and recounted the morning of December 14th. He got up early for work, saw his wife still sleeping, nothing unusual, left the house at 5:15 a.m., and when he returned that afternoon, she was gone. When pressed for more detail, Richard insisted the bathroom light was off, the house locked normally, no signs of hurried departure. Harlan recorded the statement and asked about the state of the marriage. Richard answered briefly, "We had disagreements, but nothing serious, just financial pressure." Meanwhile, another officer was sent to interview Jonathan Hale at his high school. Jonathan said, on the night of the 13th, he was home. Went to bed early, heard his parents talking downstairs, no arguing. Next morning when he got up, his dad was already gone, and Erin wasn't home. He assumed she had flown out. When asked about his father's behavior that night, Jonathan paused a few seconds and said Richard spent a long time in the garage, making noises like he was rearranging things. Harlan cross-referenced the two statements and noted a discrepancy in the timeline. Richard claimed he slept all night. Jonathan insisted his dad was up late in the garage. In the interview transcript, Harlan wrote, "Minor inconsistency between family members' statements, need to verify actual garage location and condition." He also requested financial verification between the couple, including card transactions and recent bills. The interview wrap-up became a separate file rating Richard's cooperation as average, calm but evasive when asked about the marriage. He said he would cooperate with police, but refused a consent search without a warrant. Harlan returned to the scene with a technician to re-examine physical details in the house to clarify the discrepancies. The garage door was secured with an interior bolt, key kept in a kitchen drawer. The door showed fresh paint, and one corner of the floor had light scratches. The area was photographed and added to a supplemental report. The day's summary read, "Direct interviews with Richard Hale and son Jonathan reveal inconsistencies regarding time and activity on the night of the 14th of December. Residence stable, but garage shows recent use. Recommend detailed inspection." The proposal was sent up the chain with a request for a technical search warrant of the entire house to investigate the anomalies. 3 days after the interviews, after reviewing Lieutenant Harlan's proposal, the court approved a search warrant for 47 Clover Lane. That morning at 8:15 a.m., the Hopewell Township Police Forensics team arrived with 2 patrol units and a specialized van. Richard Hale was informed of his right to observe. He stood on the porch looking tense, but did not object. The team began standard state protocol forensic processing, numbering every area of the house: living room, bedrooms, kitchen, basement, and garage. Each zone was photographed in full before detailed examination. The ground floor showed no disturbance. Everything intact, but inside the garage the smell of solvent and fresh paint was unmistakable, contradicting the initial patrol's earlier description. A technician used ultraviolet light on the floor and detected faint fluorescence in the corner near the west wall, the exact spot Jonathan said his father had lingered the night Aaron vanished. Harlan ordered small scrapings of the new paint layer. Beneath it was a faint dark stain. The sample was removed with a specialty blade and sealed as CL6A. Another part of the garage held an old oil drum. The outside was dusty but the rim freshly wiped. Fluid inside was sampled and labeled CL6B. The surrounding floor tested preliminarily with Kasselmeyer reagent and gave a pale pink reaction, not conclusive but noted as possible biological. In the north corner, technicians found a thin rubber floor mat with fresh paint over it and a small cut at the edge. The mat was rolled up and bagged as CL6C. On the workbench by the door sat a solvent bottle with a loose cap and a new label, half full. Police recorded the product name and manufacturer for the evidence log. Harlan ordered the basement opened and inspected pipes and storage areas. The basement was dry and clean with a slight musty smell, no mechanical damage. An industrial shop vac and power tool box were brought up for examination. Inside the vacuum bag were small red-brown fabric fibers, removed with tweezers and sealed as CL6D. All living areas were swept one last time, nothing unusual. The entire scene was photographed, mapped for evidence locations, and every sample numbered and sealed per New Jersey procedure. By 11:40 a.m., the team finished collection and transported all evidence to the Trenton Forensic Lab. Harlan's signed summary report listed 4 collected samples: paint and possible blood, oil, floor mat, and fibers. Initial conclusion: garage shows recent repainting, presence of solvent and oil odor, weak biological reaction under UV, nature not yet determined. In recommendations, Harlan prioritized analysis of CL6A and CL6D for human blood. The report and evidence were delivered to the lab at 1:15 p.m. that day, with instructions to store at standard 4 degrees Celsius and provide preliminary results within 5 business days. After handover, the scene remained sealed, and the garage posted off-limits until official lab results arrived. After the criminalistics team left the scene and the samples were transferred to the Trenton Forensic Lab for analysis, Lieutenant Harlan immediately launched the expanded search phase. The garage examination report indicated that Erin Bennett likely did not leave the property in her personal vehicle, so the search plan was extended to a 10-mile radius from 47 Clover Lane. The next morning, a map of the area was spread out on the table at the temporary command center, divided into 4 primary directions: east, west, south, and north. Rescue teams, traffic police, and volunteers were mobilized again and divided into 5 groups. The first group swept the main road leading into town, checking drainage ditches and small bridges along the traffic corridor. The second group searched the new residential area to the north, focusing on vacant houses and unfinished construction sites. The third group covered the low hills near the forest, using thermal detection equipment. The remaining 2 groups coordinated with industrial security to access the Pennington Industrial Park, an area of warehouses and machine shops located about 4 miles west of the Hale residence. Harlan personally supervised this team. The industrial park was large, with dozens of warehouses and container yards. The park manager, Curtis Nolan, confirmed that the facility still operated at night, mainly for machinery maintenance. According to him, on the night of December 13th, 2 companies had registered use of warehouses, Number 4 and Number 6. But on the morning of the 14th, a security guard heard strange noises from the southern part of the shop area, sounds like electric welding lasting several minutes. At that time, heavy snow was falling and visibility was poor, so the guard did not investigate. Harlan requested that Nolan provide the access log and verify the camera system. Results showed that 4 cameras were functioning normally, but the camera at the south entrance, the exact location where the welding sound was heard, had been broken since the beginning of the month and was not recording. The search teams were deployed in lines, systematically checking fences, storage yards, drainage canals, and waste areas. Every unusual object was documented, but no biological traces or personal belongings were found. A specialized team using handheld metal detectors scanned the concrete floors and scrap areas, locating a few blackened metal fragments, but they were identified as old workshop waste. Traffic police searched Route 514 connecting Pennington and Hopewell, but found no skid marks or unusual braking signs. By afternoon, rescue units used drones to film the entire area, but the fresh snow layer made infrared images unable to clearly show heat differences. The end-of-day report recorded total search area exceeding 25 square kilometers, no valuable physical evidence discovered, no vehicle or signs of the victim's movement found. Harlan noted in his log, Pennington operates at night. Mechanical sounds coincide with disappearance timeline. Continue monitoring. The teams returned to headquarters, compiled location data, and submitted detailed reports on routes and weather conditions. All results were entered into the missing person file, classified as no physical discoveries, but recommending that the Pennington Industrial Park be noted as a potential location for additional searches if new evidence emerges. After completing the expanded area search report and recording the statement from the Pennington Industrial Park security guard, Lieutenant Harlan shifted focus to electronic data to determine Erin Bennett's movements during the disappearance window. He contacted the State Telecommunications Technical Division to retrieve full call logs and location data for 2 phone numbers: Erin's mobile phone and Richard Hale's. Results showed Erin's device made its last call at 9:37 p.m. on December 13th, matching her best friend Dana Cross's statement, after which it ceased all activity. Cell network data recorded the final signal originating from a tower near the intersection of Pennington Road and Route 31, approximately 4 miles west of the Hale residence, precisely the edge of the Pennington Industrial Park. Richard's phone showed normal call activity on the 13th, but between 4:40 a.m. and 5 a.m. on the 14th, there was a 47-second call to a public phone registered at the Evergreen Fuel gas station, located on the main road leading into the industrial park. When questioned about this, Richard stated he did not remember making the call and suggested someone else might have used his phone, but network data showed his device was active from a precise location within a 500-meter radius of warehouse number 6 in the industrial park. At that time, Aaron's signal had already gone completely silent. Harlan compared location data from both devices and determined they overlapped in coverage area from approximately 10 p.m. on the 13th until 5 a.m. the next morning. Both phones registered with the same cell tower, indicating a high probability they were in the same area or very close to each other. To verify, he requested additional data extraction from BTS systems of 2 different carriers to rule out coverage errors. Results remained consistent. Aaron's phone never left the Hopewell area after 9:37 p.m. until the signal disappeared, while Richard's phone recorded one short westward movement around 4:30 a.m., then returned to the original Clover Lane coverage area by 6:10 a.m. Harlan created a presumed travel route diagram based on these signal points, marking 2 connected locations on the map: 47 Clover Lane, Pennington Industrial Park, and back to the starting point. He contacted Industrial Park security for surveillance footage from the night of the 13th, but was informed the south side system was broken, and main gate cameras only retained footage for 48 hours. By the time of the request, the data had been overwritten. The Evergreen fuel station also no longer had footage, as their system retained video for only 7 days. All visual verification sources were gone. A summary report was prepared the same day, stating, "No visual evidence exists, but mobile location data shows overlapping signal coverage between Aaron Bennett and Richard Hale continuously from 10 p.m. on December 13th to 5 a.m. on December 14th. Richard's call to the public phone at Evergreen Fuel occurred within this window, confirming his presence near the industrial park. The report conclusion was signed by Harlan with a note: "Call content cannot be determined, but signal location is significant. Recommend continued cross-checking with traffic and peripheral camera data if available." The document was sent to the Mercer County Sheriff's Office and added to Aaron Bennett's missing person file as a major point of suspicion, with the overlapping signal location marked on the electronic investigation map. After finalizing the location data report and submitting the signal overlap diagram to superiors, Lieutenant Harlan initiated supplemental witness interviews to corroborate suspicious points related to Richard Hale's activity on the night Aaron Bennett disappeared. The witness list was expanded to include nearby residents on Clover Lane and night shift employees at the Pennington Industrial Park. The task force began collecting new statements on December 18th. The neighbor directly across from the Hales, Robert Mills, stated he suffered from insomnia and woke around midnight. Looking out his window, he saw the garage light at 47 Clover Lane still on. He remembered it clearly because the light reflected off the snow in front, creating a larger-than-normal glow. The light stayed on until nearly dawn. He couldn't pinpoint the exact time, but insisted it was unusual for the Hale family, who normally turned off all exterior lights by 11 p.m. The neighbor to the left, June Keller, independently confirmed in her statement that at 1 a.m. she got up for medication and through her curtains saw a yellowish garage light still on at the Hale residence and heard sounds like metal clanging, not loud, but noticeable in the quiet night. Both statements were recorded, documented, cross-checked, and found to match in the midnight to dawn time frame. Meanwhile, investigators recontacted the Pennington Industrial Park night security guard, Huey, who originally reported the welding sound. The guard, Carl Benton, age 45, had worked there over 10 years. In the formal interview, Carl provided more detail around 4:20 a.m. on December 14th. While patrolling the north side, he saw vehicle headlights shining through the south fence, accompanied by a brief engine sound. He approached and observed a gray 2-door pickup truck parked close to the side gate of warehouse number 6. The truck had no company logo, and the license plate was obscured by snow. He only saw the driver wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap. The driver never exited the vehicle. The engine ran for about 2 minutes, then the lights went off, and the truck was no longer visible. Carl did not report it at the time because he assumed it belonged to an early shift worker. His statement was cross-referenced with the mobile data report. The timing matched exactly with Richard Hale's short call to the Evergreen Fuel public phone. Harlan immediately added this information to the file. The vehicle description matched Richard's registered 2005 gray-silver Ford F-150, typically parked in the garage. However, during the previous vehicle inspection, it showed no abnormalities, tires clean, undercarriage dry, no mud or snow. For verification, Harlan ordered detailed photographs of the entire truck body documenting current condition. The expanded witness report was completed the same day, noting 3 independent sources confirming unusual garage light throughout the night and a gray pickup appearing at the industrial park during the same window as Richard's phone signal. Harlan concluded in the assessment section, need to monitor Richard Hale's movements, verify actual schedule for the night of December 13th, 14, collect additional traffic camera data on the route connecting Clover Lane and Pennington. The personal surveillance proposal was submitted to the Mercer County Sheriff's Office that day, with a recommendation to authorize temporary GPS tracking on Richard's Ford F-150 to monitor future travel. At the end of the report, Harlan added a brief note. Independent statements align on time and location, high likelihood of establishing subject's initial direction of travel. While the request for personal surveillance on Richard Hale awaited approval, the Trenton State Forensic Lab returned preliminary findings on samples collected from the garage at 47 Clover Lane. The report reached Lieutenant Harlan's desk on the morning of December 21st, marking the first step in validating physical evidence related to the disappearance. Results showed 2 of the 4 submitted samples tested positive, with luminol reagent, exhibiting strong luminescence in dark conditions, characteristic of traces containing human hemoglobin. Sample CL6A, paint and fluid taken from beneath the garage floor, showed the clearest reaction. Sample CL6D, fibers recovered from the shop vacuum dust bag, gave a weaker but still positive signal. The remaining 2 samples, oil and floor mat, showed no biological reaction. The analyst, Dr. Paul Reiner, noted that the sample volume was extremely small, sufficient only to determine biological nature, not enough for DNA profiling. In his technical notes he wrote, protein structure in sample CL6A, denatured by heat or solvent exposure, possibly related to chemical cleaning. Sample CL6D, contaminated with dust and synthetic fibers, blood quantity extremely low. The lab's initial assessment concluded the traces were no longer pristine, unsuitable for standard genetic analysis. The lab suggested that if DNA identification was required, advanced gene amplification techniques on replacement samples would be needed. In the general comments section, the technician clearly stated, high probability these blood traces are from an older incident, age undetermined, no basis to directly link to the current disappearance. Harlan read every page carefully, highlighting in red the phrases about heat or solvent impact, as they matched observations of fresh paint and oil odors in the garage during the search. He wrote in the margin, possible cleaning or painting to conceal traces. However, per procedure, because sample volume was insufficient for DNA results, the report remained classified source undetermined. Photographs of the luminol glow were filed as official evidence under designation 10FY 2009. Harlan requested the crime scene technician add a precise diagram of sample locations in the garage for cross-reference with statements. A copy was sent to the Mercer County Sheriff's Office with a separate comment, human blood detected in garage, but quantity insufficient for identity confirmation. No legal basis to open criminal investigation at this time. Finally, in his personal duty log he wrote, blood staining at location matching Jonathan's statement. May predate disappearance or relate to mechanical work. Await further confirmation. By day's end, the full forensic file was entered into internal storage, and the case retained its classification missing person circumstances unclear, with a special note. Garage scene yielded positive biological traces, but insufficient for DNA profiling. Origin and timing of blood traces undetermined. The inconclusive forensic result regarding blood identity caused the investigation to reach a standstill. After 2 weeks of exhaustive efforts, Lieutenant Harlan completed the final summary report of the initial phase and presented it to command. The entire case file was re-evaluated, including witness statements, expanded search results, cell phone location data, and the Trenton forensic report. An internal review meeting was held at the Mercer County Sheriff's Office on December 28, 2009, attended by representatives from the investigative unit, criminalistics, and the prosecutor's office. Harlan presented each file section, emphasizing unresolved points. Erin Bennett's current location unknown. No direct witness saw her leave the property. No clear signs of criminal activity, and garage evidence yielded only non-identifiable biological traces. The prosecutor's office asked about the possibility of intentional injury or body concealment, but Harlan responded that without a body, weapon, or signs of force, there was no legal basis for charges. He recommended keeping the file open but suspending active field investigation until new developments arose. The meeting concluded after nearly 2 hours. Minutes recorded unanimous agreement, no additional evidence or indicia of crime, victim not located, file status remains temporary, pending. That same day, search teams were disbanded. Equipment returned to originating units. The garage at 47 Clover Lane was unsealed and returned to family use. Harlan personally informed Richard Hale of the decision. Hale listened silently, signed the property release form, and requested no copies of reports. In his duty log, Harlan noted briefly, "Subject calm, asked no questions about forensic results or continued search." After retrieving the signed form, he returned to headquarters to finalize archiving. The Erin Bennett file was classified missing adult, ongoing investigation under case number CC091147. Original evidence was sealed in storage pending further court orders. Electronic data and statement copies were uploaded to the state system. The case summary stated, "Initial investigation phase concluded. No criminal evidence discovered. Insufficient elements to open criminal case. Continue passive monitoring. Await new public tips or physical discoveries." In his personal notes, Harlan added, "Instinct says scene was cleaned, but lack legal grounds to proceed. Closing initial phase for now." By month's end, the sheriff's office issued the official order suspending active investigation, moving the case to long-term monitoring. The internal database updated status to cold pending, with automatic 6-month reporting renewals. On December 31, 2009, Harlan's final 7-word entry in his case notebook read, "Victim location unknown, investigation temporarily suspended." After the suspension order was issued, the complete Erin Bennett file was transferred to the Records Management section of the Mercer County Sheriff's Office for administrative classification. In early January 2010, records staff finalized the closing summary stating, "No criminal elements detected. No evidence of foul play or coercion, victim or confirmatory evidence of disappearance, cause not located. Case number CC091147 was updated to missing adult. No foul play suspected. Procedure required termination of all field activity, storage of physical evidence, and retention of the file in central archives for a minimum of 10 years per New Jersey regulation. 3 hard copy sets were printed, 1 retained at Hopewell Township headquarters, 1 sent to the Mercer County Sheriff's Office, and 1 forwarded to the State Cold Case Unit for long-term oversight. Before handover, Lieutenant Harlan performed a final review of electronic documents, including crime scene photos, search maps, mobile location data, and the Trenton forensic report. All data was compressed into a digitized encrypted file and burned to secure storage media. Remaining physical evidence, paint samples, floor mat, fibers, oil, and garage examination records was sealed in 2 metal containers labeled Erin Bennett. Inactive evidence, and transported to the State Evidence Warehouse in Trenton. The transfer receipt was time-stamped 9:45 a.m. On January 12, 2010, signed by Cold Case Unit Lead Detective William Huxley. In the acceptance note, Huxley wrote briefly, "Insufficient evidence for criminal investigation, maintained status, preserved per regulation." The case summary was automatically forwarded by the state server to the federal NCIC database with the description: female 33, Caucasian, missing since December 2009, possible voluntary disappearance. Thereafter, the case entered the unresolved but inactive list under inactive missing persons, monitored periodically by the cold case unit. Harlan received electronic confirmation of successful handover, marking the complete end of local active investigation. In his final note to the division chief, he wrote one sentence: "No further feasible legal action." From that point, Aaron Bennett no longer appeared on the Hopewell Police Department's active investigation board. Internal state police bulletins mentioned it only as a non-criminal missing person case. The system scheduled automatic annual file reviews unless new evidence surfaced. On January 15, 2010, the paper file was placed on Shelf 24, Row B, Section 2009-2010, Missing Adults, tagged with a red Cold Case Unit, NJSP label. The electronic copy was transferred to the State Department of Law and Public Safety Central Server, with access restricted to senior investigators. Handover complete, Harlan signed the records ledger. His final entry regarding the case read simply: "Archived classified, no foul play, suspected, duty concluded." Following this procedure, Aaron Bennett's name disappeared from the Hopewell Police Weekly Tracking Board. The case was officially closed in operational systems. For more than a decade after Aaron Bennett's file was handed over to the Cold Case Unit, no progress of any kind was recorded. From 2010 to 2021, the disappearance labeled CC091147 existed only as a data entry in the electronic system, reviewed annually like thousands of other cases across the state. Each year, the assigned records clerk automatically printed a status report, marked it "No new evidence, no investigative action required," signed it for legal compliance, and filed it away. The evidence box containing paint chips, garage floor matting, and fabric fibers from 47 Clover Lane remained untouched in the evidence vault in Trenton, sealed alongside hundreds of similar cases. The vault temperature was kept steady at 18 degrees Celsius. The boxes bar-coded and inventoried periodically. No one requested access. No calls came from local police or the victim's family, and Aaron Bennett's file slowly became one of many forgotten missing persons cases. In 2012, 2015, and 2018, the system simply logged identical entries: no activity. Lieutenant Harlan retired in 2016. His files were moved to personal archives, and the case no longer had an assigned officer. In early 2021, the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety launched a statewide review program called Project Resolve to re-examine unsolved disappearances of women between 1990 and 2015. The program was designed to apply new forensic technologies, especially next-generation DNA sequencing and digital data matching from older devices. A list of 600 cases was randomly selected based on time period and case characteristics. Aaron Bennett's case was automatically flagged because it matched the criteria: missing adult female, evidence containing biological residue. In June 2021, the file was placed in Reassessment Batch 4B, a group reserved for cases with physical evidence stored for more than 10 years but never tested for DNA. An electronic notice was sent to the Trenton Evidence Vault requesting seal integrity checks and preparation for retesting. Records technician Paula Grant opened the log, confirmed that evidence box EB 2009 was intact, seals unbroken, control tags valid, signed the internal transfer form, and moved the box to the cold case unit's pending analysis area. Meanwhile, the electronic system updated the entry: case CC091147, selected for forensic reevaluation. DNA batch assignment pending. The Cold Case Unit's 2021 annual report listed the case as one of 47 selected for new technology testing in the upcoming fiscal year. On December 17, 2021, an internal memo was generated: case CC091147, initial transfer to active reassessment queue. Responsible unit, Cold Case Division. Mercer subsection. After lying dormant for more than 11 years in cold storage, the evidence box received a new seal and awaited transport to the state's modern forensic lab in New Brunswick. The database entry changed to awaiting reassignment to investigator for preliminary review. For the first time in over a decade, Aaron Bennett's file was reopened for active review. In early 2022, as Project Resolve moved into its implementation phase, the New Jersey Cold Case Unit began assigning cases to individual detectives. The Aaron Bennett disappearance, CC091147, was assigned to Detective Henry Morales, age 42, a former violent crimes investigator with extensive experience in cold cases involving forensic evidence. On January 10, 2022, Morales formally signed for the file at the Cold Case Division, Mercer's subsection office. On his desk sat a nearly 400-page case folder containing interview transcripts, crime scene photos, search maps, cell phone data, and the original 2009 forensic reports. He spent the first 3 days reading every document and taking notes on anything unusual. In his personal notebook, Morales listed key timeline points: reported missing December 14, 2009, expanded search around Pennington Industrial Park. Fresh paint found in the garage, positive luminol reaction, but insufficient blood volume for DNA profiling. Case later classified, no foul play suspected. While reviewing the original crime scene photos, one detail made him pause. The rubber garage mat showed 2 distinct paint layers, with a darker streak along the wall edge, yet the 2009 report only generically noted, fresh paint applied. He zoomed in and noticed a small cut in the floor, about 40 centimeters from the wall, the exact spot where Jonathan Hale said his father had stayed all night on December 13. Morales asked the tech unit to reprint all original photos in high resolution and to map the 2009 luminol glow areas. Comparing the new images to the old forensic report, he realized the luminol-tested zone and the freshly painted zone did not fully overlap, meaning the original team may have missed a section of the garage floor. Reiner's report, Morales found another overlooked detail. Sample CL6A contained traces of light petroleum distillates, typically used to clean metal surfaces. That suggested possible mechanical or heat-related activity in the garage that was never documented. Morales highlighted these sections and flagged them in red. While reviewing the cell tower data, he noticed the overlap of Aaron's and Richard's phone pings near Pennington Industrial Park, but no in-depth movement analysis had ever been done. The original map only showed 2 crude overlapping circles. He noted, need to reconstruct travel routes using current technology. By January 14, Morales finished his preliminary review, identifying more than 10 red flags in the original file, most notably, oil staining near the west wall, fresh paint never chemically analyzed, and an untested floor section. The final line of his report read, 2009 scene not fully processed, possible concealed biological fluid or oil beneath paint. He immediately contacted the Trenton Vault to confirm the evidence was still sealed and intact, then signed the request to transfer everything to the state's modern forensic lab in New Brunswick for retesting. In his duty log, he wrote the first entry of the year, CC091147 reopened. Oil stain, fresh paint, full garage re-examination required. With that note, a disappearance thought buried for 12 years was officially reactivated in the New Jersey investigation system. Immediately after signing the retesting request, Detective Henry Morales personally tracked the transfer of evidence from the Trenton Vault to the state lab in New Brunswick. On January 18, 2022, technicians received 2 sealed boxes from 2010 containing paint chips, floor matting, fabric fibers, and fluids collected from the garage at 47 Clover Lane. The seals were broken in the presence of Cold Case Unit and lab representatives. The samples were cleaned of dust and processed using modern extraction methods and next-generation sequencing capable of recovering DNA from severely degraded evidence. A preliminary report dated January 26 showed 2 of the 4 samples yielded positive results. Floor matting sample 6C, recorded as luminol negative in 2009, now revealed faint human hemoglobin traces under infrared light. DNA extraction produced a 99.97% match to Erin Bennett's reference profile, stored in NCIC from her earlier Washington State Police file. Sample C, AL6, A paint scraped from beneath the garage floor, contained trace human DNA mixed with petroleum and solvent 2 contaminated for full profiling. But the partial sequence showed over 80% likelihood of the same source as Erin. A small reddish-brown fabric fragment recovered from the matting was separated for further analysis. Under electron microscopy, the fiber showed heat-induced distortion and charring, along with partially degraded human protein. The report stated, protein origin consistent with human tissue, likely exposure to high temperature or electrical source. When asked about possible origin, lead technician Dr. Megan Hollis said the burn pattern and resistance marks matched domestic electric blanket fabric, suggesting the fragment was residue from an item that had been burned or electrically overheated. These findings were compiled in Forensic Report NB 22014, signed January 29. The expert assessment concluded, confirmed DNA match to Erin Bennett. Charred fiber with human protein indicates direct contact between object and biological tissue. Possible processing or concealment of biological traces at scene. Morales closely reviewed the report, highlighting 3 key points: sample locations in the garage, the DNA match, and the burned electric blanket fiber. He cross-referenced the old photos and noticed a high amperage outlet on the west wall, exactly where the fresh paint and oil stain had been found. The presence of human protein on electric blanket material, combined with heat damage, strongly suggested on-site burning or thermal processing of biological material. In his January 31 investigative log entry, Morales wrote, NGS confirms Erin Bennett DNA in garage. Burned fiber consistent with household electric blanket, possible post-mortem body processing or movement. The report, along with supporting photos and genetic charts, was forwarded to the cold case unit supervisor. The lab resealed all samples and returned them to long-term storage in a climate-controlled container. The state database automatically updated the case status, evidence match, biological trace confirmed to missing subject. Possible homicide indicators. With these results, more than 12 years after she was reported missing, Erin Bennett's disappearance was officially marked biological match found. And the new forensic report raised the possibility that body disposal had occurred in the garage at 47 Clover Lane. Once forensic results confirmed Erin Bennett's DNA in the garage at 47 Clover Lane, along with physical evidence of heat exposure, Detective Henry Morales shifted focus to the old cell phone data showing overlapping signals near Pennington Industrial Park. He pulled administrative records for the industrial park and reviewed access lists for 2008-2010. Maintenance logs showed that Richard Hale, then principal of Pennington Elementary, had signed a contract to oversee a student vocational internship program and was issued a 1-year access card for 2009, expiring in December, the same month Erin vanished. Morales compared this to security guard Carl Benton's statement about seeing a gray pickup near the side gate early on December 14, 2009. The vehicle description matched Richard's registered Ford F-150. To strengthen the connection, he ordered reanalysis of Erin's and Richard's cell data using modern geolocation tools. The new system applied probability algorithms to reconstruct old tower coverage. Results showed Erin's final ping at 2241 on December 13, 2009, from Tower 482 PN on the southern edge of Pennington Industrial Park. During the same window, Richard's phone hit the same tower, then went silent before reappearing at 4:38. The next morning, the exact time of a short call to a payphone at the Evergreen fuel station near the main gate. Morales plotted the likely route on satellite maps from 47 Clover Lane, via Route 546, to Pennington Road, a distance of 4.3 miles that perfectly matched the timing and old ping data. To confirm Richard's presence, Morales contacted the Pennington Industrial Park Management Office and requested the 2009 Southgate paper log. Amid faded entries, one line on December 13 read Card 1412. Access at 2158. Card 1412 was traced to the temporary pass issued to Richard Hale for the internship program. The log page was immediately copied and sealed as evidence. Morales wrote in his memo, Card 1412 Access 2158, on December 13, 2009, same date and approximate time as Aaron's final ping. Location and timing match, subject confirmed on site. He then studied the park map and focused on Warehouse 6, where guard Benton had heard an engine and seen welding flashes. At the time, Warehouse 6 was leased by Riverfront Tools, a company Richard had worked with on community programs. This provided another direct link. Morales compiled everything into a 14-page report, summarizing Richard's legitimate access, matching cell data, timing, and witness statements. The conclusion recommended clear nexus between potential suspect and Pennington Industrial Park, request legal search of Warehouse 6 and surrounding area. He forwarded the request to the Cold Case Unit Commander and the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office for an official search warrant. In his duty log on February 2, 2022, Morales wrote, Electronic data, witness and access records align. Pennington Industrial Park now primary suspect location, field search required. As soon as the request to search Pennington Industrial Park was submitted and awaiting approval, an unexpected event occurred that caused the case to shift direction rapidly. On February 9, 2022, at approximately 10 a.m., a worker from Wilson & Sons Infrastructure Demolition, the company contracted to dismantle old warehouse number 6 in the industrial park, called the Mercer County Sheriff's Office hotline to report the discovery of a suspicious metal object. The caller, Mark Jensen, age 38, stated that while operating an excavator, he noticed an unusual hollow sound when the bucket struck the concrete floor. After stopping the machine and scraping away the top layer of cement, Jensen saw a rectangular iron box approximately 1.2 meters long, with its surface fully welded shut, painted silver gray, and partially protruding from the foundation. He initially thought it might be an old fuel tank, but when he tapped it, the sound was solid and dense, not hollow. A patrol unit arrived on scene within 20 minutes, immediately cordoned off the area, and ordered all demolition activity halted. Detective Henry Morales received the emergency notification and arrived at the scene at 11:10 a.m. He recognized that warehouse number 6 was the exact location identified as suspicious in the search warrant. Request submitted 2 days earlier. Morales directed crime scene technicians to photograph, measure, and examine the metal container. The container's surface was approximately 3 millimeters thick, with continuous old but solid weld beads around the lid. The lid had silver paint splatter, matching the color of the garage paint in the 2009 crime scene photos. The box was set in a shallow pit, about 40 centimeters deep, located at the edge of the concrete slab where the warehouse wall met the rear corridor area. There were no warning signs or markings. Using a handheld angle grinder, technicians cut the top weld seam and opened the lid under Morales's supervision. When the lid was lifted, a smell of metal and mildew escaped. Inside was a layer of deteriorated insulation material, on top of which lay several personal items, a silver necklace with a pendant engraved EB, a woman's Seiko wristwatch with a rotted leather strap, and a piece of charred red fabric stuck to the bottom of the container. Beneath this insulation layer, technicians discovered small off-white fragments, initially thought to be ceramic, but under focused light, they exhibited porous texture and natural curvature, characteristics of human bone. The largest fragment was approximately 7 centimeters long and had black burn marks along the edges. Morales immediately ordered all activity stopped, additional photographs taken, and the entire container sealed and assigned temporary evidence number PI-221. The scene was secured with police tape, covering a 15-square-meter area around the pit. The mobile forensic unit was dispatched for preliminary examination, recording ambient temperature, humidity, and exact GPS coordinates of the evidence. The on-scene report stated, "Sealed iron container discovered containing personal items and human bone fragments, suspected to be related to the disappearance of Aaron Bennett." The iron box was placed in a specialized container, sealed with red evidence tape, and transported under police escort to the New Jersey State Medical Examiner's office in New Brunswick, arriving at 3:45 p.m. the same day. Morales signed the seizure report, noting, "Paint color and material consistent with garage paint from 47 Clover Lane. Size and welding style indicate fabrication using common household tools." A section of surrounding concrete was cut, and 5 kilograms of cement debris collected for thermal trace analysis. Police also recovered a loose bolt lying near the edge of the pit that showed black rust stains. A preliminary report was completed that same afternoon, confirming this was the first piece of physical evidence of clear probative value since the missing person case was reopened. Morales notified the cold case unit and the state prosecutor's office, requesting strict chain of custody preservation pending full forensic examination. In the electronic case file, Case CC091147 was updated to status "Human remains suspected, pending forensic analysis," marking a major turning point in the investigation. The iron container recovered from warehouse number 6, Pennington Industrial Park, was transferred to the New Jersey State Medical Examiner's office on the night of February 9, 2022. The following day, the forensic team began the unsealing and examination process. Under Detective Henry Morales' supervision, technicians removed the insulation layer and separated each component for individual analysis. The preliminary forensic report issued on February 14 documented the recovery of 17 bone fragments, most small, with one fragment exhibiting morphological characteristics consistent with an adult human cranial bone. After cleaning and enzymatic treatment, complete mitochondrial DNA profiles were extracted from the 2 least burned fragments. Next-generation sequencing analysis showed a 100% match with Aaron Bennett's DNA profile, stored in the national database since 2006, leaving no possibility of error. The initial conclusion stated, "Human remains positively identified as belonging to Aaron Bennett." During evidence cataloging, technicians discovered beneath the bottom insulation layer a metal object approximately 20 centimeters long, rusted and coated with burnt residue, shaped like the frame of a handgun. After cleaning, the faint serial number on the frame was enhanced under an electron microscope, clearly revealing 2417J6, matching exactly the registered Smith & Wesson .32 revolver legally owned by Aaron Bennett. During her service with the Washington State Patrol, the firearm was submitted for fingerprint and DNA analysis. Results showed biological traces from 2 individuals on the trigger and inside the grip. The primary DNA profile matched Richard Hale at 99.99% certainty, using reference samples from his archived medical records in educational administrative files. No DNA from Aaron Bennett was detected on the trigger. The weapon contained no rounds, but the barrel retained lead residue and firing marks indicating it had been discharged at least once. The cranial fragment exhibited a circular perforation 0.8 centimeters in diameter, consistent with a .32 caliber projectile. The bullet path ran right to left and slightly bottom to top, consistent with a contact or near-contact shot. Physical analysis of the container lid revealed heat damage and iron oxide, indicating the container had been subjected to intense heat before burial. The comprehensive report signed by Dr. Megan Hollis on February 16 concluded, "Recovered remains and bone fragments positively identified as Aaron Bennett. Metal object is Smith & Wesson .32 revolver, serial 2417J6, registered to the victim. Richard Hale's DNA recovered from the trigger. No evidence supports self-inflicted injury." Thermal and physical traces demonstrate intentional post-mortem body processing. Morales received the full results, entered them into the cold case unit file, and forwarded a memorandum to the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office. In his note, he wrote, "Evidentiary structure, logically consistent, victim DNA in container. Weapon matching registration, Richard Hale DNA on trigger. Conduct matches homicide and staged disappearance scenario. The state database updated the case status to homicide suspected, primary subject identified." Morales requested continued sealing of all evidence and notified federal authorities to ensure chain of custody integrity. In his duty log entry for February 17, 2022, he wrote briefly, "DNA confirmed, weapon serial match, Richard Hale, trace present. Aaron Bennett, missing person case officially reclassified as staged homicide." Immediately after the forensic report confirmed Aaron Bennett's DNA, the registered firearm, and Richard Hale's biological trace, the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, in coordination with the cold case unit, applied for an additional search warrant for 47 Clover Lane, the original 2009 disappearance scene. On February 19, 2022, the New Jersey Superior Court approved the warrant, valid for 72 hours. The forensic team and Detective Henry Morales returned to the property the following morning, unsealing under supervision of the prosecutor's representative and an independent examiner. The house remained owned by Richard Hale, but had been vacant since he left the area in 2015. The garage door was secured with a new padlock, which was legally cut. Morales ordered full photographic documentation of the current condition and remeasurement of floor, ceiling, walls, and electrical points. Technicians using ultraviolet and metal surface analyzers detected abnormally high thermal reflection from the west garage wall paint, consistent with industrial-grade heat-resistant coating, not documented in the 2009 report. Core samples revealed silver-gray paint containing aluminum oxide particles identical to the coating on the container recovered from Pennington Industrial Park. Beneath the garage floor at the original CL6A sample location, technicians located fine black soot lodged between concrete seams. On-site Raman spectroscopy identified iron oxide, burnt carbon and copper residue, characteristic of welding soot. This sample was labeled CL221. Additionally, a high-capacity electrical outlet in the corner showed burn marks, with newer wiring but old connection scars. A long streak on the concrete floor, previously painted over, was revealed deep scratch marks, and a thin metal fragment embedded in the concrete when the top paint layer was chemically removed. The fragment matched the alloy of the warehouse container. All findings were documented with photographs and GPS coordinates. Morales noted the garage exhaust vent led directly outside through a steel pipe whose interior was coated with thick black soot, indicating prolonged welding or metal heating. Preliminary on-scene analysis concluded the level of soot and heat residue exceeded normal household use. The technician's rapid report stated, "Physical, chemical, and metallic soot traces in the garage are consistent with welding or heating using consumer-grade equipment. Heat-resistant paint on wall matches container evidence. Sufficient basis to designate the garage as the site of biological trace creation and body processing." Morales signed the scene log and prepared a new scene diagram marking the west wall and adjacent floor as the central area. The interim report submitted to the cold case unit that afternoon concluded, "Garage at 47 Clover Lane confirmed as primary crime scene, where blood, oil, and thermal traces corresponding to body concealment prior to transport were generated." All photographs, samples, and scene records were sealed and transferred directly to the State Forensic Laboratory for detailed analysis. In his investigation log for February 20th, Morales wrote briefly, "Welding soot, heat-resistant paint, drag marks match container samples, garage confirmed as crime scene." After establishing the garage at 47 Clover Lane as the primary scene and identifying welding soot and heat-resistant paint matching the container evidence, Detective Henry Morales expanded the investigation into financial records to trace the origin of the materials. He issued formal requests to New Jersey Commercial Archives for all purchase records made by Richard Hale between October and December 2009. The Financial Audit Unit, coordinating with the State Department of Revenue, extracted relevant credit card and electronic invoice data. The compiled report returned on February 24, 2022, listed 42 transactions, of which 3 stood out. One at Pennington Tools and Supply on December 12, one at Edison Appliances on December 13, and one at Trenton Paints on the same day. Morales reviewed the itemized receipts and determined Richard had purchased a compact Lincoln electric arc welder, 2 argon tanks, welding cable set, 2 cans of silver heat-resistant paint, and a large electric blanket. Total cost was approximately $740, paid by personal credit card. The transaction at Pennington Tools and Supply was time-stamped 8:47 p.m. on December 13, 2009, just hours before Aaron Bennett was last seen. To verify, Morales contacted the store directly. The current manager provided archived 2009 surveillance footage stored on old hard drives under company retention policy. The drives were recovered using specialized equipment. Although grainy, the relevant video clearly showed a tall man in a dark jacket, physique consistent with Richard Hale, pulling a cart containing a welder and 2 gas tanks to the checkout. Under the dim parking lot lighting, the visible portion of the license plate read NJ27G, matching the first 4 characters of Richard Hale's Ford F-150 registration. Morales copied the footage, extracted the clearest still images of the individual and items, and entered them as evidence. An independent forensic imaging report confirmed 95% probability that the person in the video was Richard Hale. Additionally, the Trenton Paints receipt showed purchase of ThermoShield Silver 800 heat-resistant paint, the exact formulation found on the garage wall and container. That transaction occurred at 9:12 p.m. the same night, approximately 30 minutes before Aaron Bennett's phone lost signal. Morales created a timeline clearly marking 8:47 p.m. welder purchase, 9:12 p.m. heat-resistant paint purchase, 9:37 p.m. Aaron's last call to her friend, 9:58 p.m. Richard's Industrial Park Gate Access Code 1412 recorded. The chain of events demonstrated continuous preparation and movement within less than 2 hours. The Edison Appliances receipt listed a high-capacity dual-control Sunbeam electric blanket, the same brand and type whose burnt fibers were recovered from the garage. Morales compiled all data into a 10-page financial investigation report, concluding, commercial transactions prove subject purchased welding equipment, heat-resistant paint and electric blanket within 24 hours prior to victim disappearance. Items match type and characteristics of evidence recovered at scene. Surveillance footage confirms subject personally paid for and transported merchandise. The report was signed February 25 and forwarded to the Cold Case Unit Commander and Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, marking the first financial evidence directly linking Richard Hale to preparation and execution at the Clover Lane scene. After the financial investigation report was submitted and purchase records proved Richard Hale bought welding equipment, heat-resistant paint, and an electric blanket on the night of December 13, 2009. Detective Henry Morales continued verifying the suspect's movements from that evening into the following morning. He focused on Evergreen Fuel Station, where a brief call from Richard's phone was logged at 4:38 a.m. on December 14. Both phone location data and Industrial Park Gate logs placed the station directly at the southern entrance to Pennington Industrial Park. Morales decided to locate any employees still working that shift in 2009. Using Evergreen Fuel's archived personnel records, he identified former night shift clerk Raymond Lewis, now 51, still living in Pennington and working security at a nearby shopping center. The interview was conducted on March 1, 2022, audio recorded and transcribed. Raymond stated that shortly before 5 a.m. on December 14, 2009, while cleaning the pump island, he saw a silver-gray Ford F-150 pull in. The truck did not refuel but parked near the payphone booth beside the store. The driver, wearing a dark jacket and a low-pulled baseball cap, made a roughly 1-minute call and returned to the vehicle. Raymond remembered the incident because it was an unusually cold Monday morning with almost no customers. He could not clearly see the driver's face due to neon reflection on the windshield, but the rear license plate clearly showed the first 4 characters, NJ27G, matching Richard Hale's registered Ford F-150. When shown a current photo of Richard's plate, Raymond confirmed the prefix and vehicle color matched his memory exactly. For independent verification, Morales had a second officer conduct a second recorded interview. The details matched 100%. The statement was cross-referenced with Evergreen Fuel payphone records showing a 47-second call at exactly 4:38 a.m. on December 14, 2009, matching Richard's phone log. Morales prepared witness statement RF-22-1, signed by Raymond Lewis, who affirmed he had read and understood the contents. He attached photos of the current station layout, payphone location, and old camera angles. The witness evaluation report stated, "Statement consistent, details reasonable, matches timing and vehicle data." Morales's assessment noted, "Independent witness confirms presence of silver-gray Ford F-150 with plate matching Richard Hale's vehicle at Evergreen Fuel 4:40 a.m. on the 14th of December 2009, consistent with phone and location data." Copies were forwarded to the Cold Case Unit and Mercer County Prosecutor's Office with a request for additional traffic database confirmation of the vehicle's presence. The supplemental report completed that day added the first eyewitness evidence in over 12 years, strengthening the closed travel loop connecting Richard Hale, his Ford F-150, the route between 47 Clover Lane Garage, and the discovery site of the welded container. After completing witness verification and collecting all physical evidence, transaction records, and forensic results, Detective Henry Morales presented a plan to reconstruct the crime scene using a 3-dimensional model to synthesize the entire chain of events. The project was coordinated between the Cold Case Unit, the New Jersey State Medical Examiner's Office, and the Forensic Science Institute at Rutgers University. On March 5, 2022, the technical team began laser scanning the entire garage at 47 Clover Lane, recording dimensions, materials, light direction, paint reflectivity, and the exact positions of every piece of evidence seized. The 3D simulation system recreated the garage structure with millimeter precision, clearly displaying the concrete floor surface, the west wall, the location of the high-power electrical outlet, drag marks, and the luminol reactive spots originally detected in 2009. Morales entered additional data from the new forensic report, including the coordinates of Aaron Bennett's DNA stains, the discovery points of welding soot, heat-resistant paint chips, and fibers from an electric blanket containing human protein. The software reconstructed the latent blood stain pattern to scale, revealing that the reactive area formed a fan-shaped pattern around the west wall zone, approximately 80 centimeters above the floor, consistent with a low-angle shot. The bullet trajectory was simulated based on the size and direction of the perforation in the skull sample, traveling from right to left, slightly upward, at a height corresponding to the victim either sitting or kneeling. When the .32 caliber firearm parameters at a 1.2 meter distance were entered, the model displayed the bullet path striking directly into the west wall, exactly where fresh paint had been applied. Trajectory and latent blood volume analysis indicated the victim was shot at close range and the body was then lowered to the floor at the scene. The software simulated physical reactions to heat and time, calculating the heat required to produce the soot layer and burn marks inside the ventilation duct. The results showed a heat source equivalent to continuous arc welding for 15-20 minutes. The data perfectly matched the metal soot and iron oxide samples collected in the garage and corresponded to the characteristics of the ThermaShield Silver 800 heat-resistant paint that Richard Hale had purchased. By combining the positions of all items of evidence, the software reconstructed the complete sequence of actions: the gunshot in the garage on the night of December 13, 2009. The victim collapsing to the left with blood spatter hitting the wall and floor, the suspect then using solvent to clean bloodstains, applying heat-resistant paint, using an arc welder to cut and assemble a metal drum, placing the body inside, welding the lid shut, and transporting it via Ford F-150 pickup to Warehouse Unit 6 at Pennington Industrial Park for burial. The 3D model clearly displayed the vehicle route and estimated 14-minute travel time at an average speed of 30 miles per hour, matching the cell phone data gap for Richard between 22:41 and 4:38 the following morning. The image analysis report generated from the model was printed as a 25-page document containing position diagrams, shooting direction, light simulation, and bullet trajectory renderings. The technical team's conclusion stated, "The physical scene forensic data, electronic traces, and physical evidence all indicate victim Aaron Bennett was shot inside the garage at 47 Clover Lane. The body was subsequently heat processed, welded inside a metal drum, and transported to Pennington Industrial Park. The blood, welding soot, heat-resistant paint, and electric blanket fibers are byproducts of that process." Morales signed off on the report and archived the 3D model in the Cold Case Unit's digital case file. In his duty log dated March 7, 2022, he wrote, "3D model completed, entire criminal sequence reconstructed, shooting location confirmed in garage, body welded and transported, 100% match with physical marks and forensic data." After completing the 3D model and confirming the shooting location and body disposal process, Detective Henry Morales moved to the phase of synthesizing all data to establish a detailed crime timeline. The report was compiled according to forensic standards and combined evidence sources including DNA, cell phone records, financial transactions, witness statements, and physical evidence recovered from both the garage and the Pennington industrial site. The reconstruction began at 7 p.m. on December 13, 2009, when Aaron Bennett returned home after a phone call with her close friend Dana Cross. At 8:47 p.m., Richard Hale appeared on surveillance footage at Pennington Tools and Supply, purchasing an arc welder and 2 argon tanks. At 9:12 p.m., he bought heat-resistant paint at Trenton Paints, and at 9:37 p.m., Aaron made her final call to Dana, sounding normal, with no signs of distress. During the same window, cell tower data showed both Aaron's and Richard's phones connecting to Tower 482 PN near the residence. At 9:58 p.m., the Pennington Industrial Park security system logged Richard's access card 1412 at the south side gate, proving he was present at the complex. However, location data showed Aaron's phone remained in the Clover Lane coverage area until 10:41 p.m., when it went offline permanently. Based on this discrepancy, Morales determined Richard returned home after leaving the industrial park, likely carrying the materials he had just purchased, in preparation for the crime. Between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., neighbor statements and garage light patterns indicated the lights at 47 Clover Lane remained on, accompanied by metallic noises. The 3D model proved the shot was fired in the garage around 10:30 p.m., with the bullet traveling right to left, consistent with Aaron standing in front of the side door. After the shot, Richard lowered the body to the floor, with blood pooling around the west wall area. DNA on the floor mat, matching Aaron, confirmed death at the scene. Between approximately 11 p.m. and midnight, Richard began cleaning the scene, using solvent and heat-resistant paint to cover bloodstains. Welding soot and iron oxide in the garage showed the welder was started during this period, likely to fabricate or seal the drum. Morales relied on phone records from midnight to 4 a.m. On December 14th, Richard's device showed no location data in the Clover Lane area, then reappeared at 4:38 a.m. near Evergreen Fuel Station, where witness Raymond Lewis saw a gray Ford F-150 stop, and a man used the payphone for 47 seconds, possibly to check or create an alibi. Afterward, location data showed Richard's phone returning to the Clover Lane coverage area by 6:10 a.m., matching statements that he left for work early. Morales combined Industrial Park administrative data to determine the 2:04 a.m. window was ideal for transporting and burying the drum at Warehouse 6, where card 1412 was swiped again at 3:47 a.m. Physical evidence proved the drum containing Aaron's body had paint and weld material identical to samples from the garage, confirming continuous disposal activity throughout the night. Morales compared this sequence with forensic results: Richard's DNA on the trigger, close-range gunshot residue, electric blanket fibers with human protein, and high-temperature marks. Every element pointed to a planned crime. The final timeline presented in the comprehensive report contained 16 key milestones from 7 p.m. December 13 to 6 a.m. December 14, 2009, describing the entire process: tool preparation, shooting the victim in the garage, evidence destruction, welding the body inside the drum, transport by personal truck, burial at the industrial park, and return home before dawn. In the conclusion, Morales wrote, "All independent data sources, DNA, cell records, physical evidence, witnesses, and financial, converge into a single coherent timeline, confirming a premeditated crime carried out over approximately 8 continuous hours. Victim Aaron Bennett was murdered in the garage, and her body processed and transported using Richard Hale's personal vehicle. The comprehensive report on the crime timeline, together with all physical, forensic, and witness evidence, was submitted by Detective Henry Morales to the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office on March 10, 2022. After thorough review, Chief Prosecutor Dana Whitfield convened a special meeting with representatives from the Cold Case Unit, New Jersey State Police, and the Medical Examiner's Office to assess prosecutability. The meeting lasted over 4 hours, after which the legal team concluded the chain of evidence was strong enough to issue arrest warrants. Charging elements included victim DNA in the garage, Richard Hale's DNA on the trigger, financial records showing purchase of welder and heat-resistant paint immediately before the disappearance, an independent witness seeing the suspect's truck at a gas station near the industrial area, and the 3D crime scene reconstruction confirming the shooting inside the garage. Additionally, the investigation revealed that Jonathan Hale, Richard's son, was present at the house on the night of the incident and likely assisted his father in transporting evidence. Pursuant to NJSA 2C11 3, Prosecutor Dana Whitfield signed approval for arrest warrants against Richard Hale for first-degree murder and against Jonathan Hale for obstruction of justice. The warrants were issued at 8:15 a.m. on March 12, 2022, with an order for emergency execution within 48 hours to prevent flight from the state. The Mercer County Sheriff's Office immediately formed a 12-officer task force divided into 2 teams: Alpha Team responsible for surveillance and arrest of Richard at his Princeton Junction residence, Bravo Team assigned to track Jonathan, then living in Hoboken and working for an equipment maintenance company. Starting the morning of March 13, both teams initiated target surveillance. Alpha Team positioned unmarked vehicles at both ends of Richard Street, documenting daily routines and departure times. Richard was observed taking morning walks and driving his silver Ford F-150 to a nearby supermarket, behaving normally with no signs of detecting surveillance. Morales maintained constant contact with the task force leader via secure frequency, personally overseeing operations from a temporary command center at Mercer County Police Headquarters. Concurrently, Bravo Team monitored Jonathan in Hoboken, noting he left his apartment for work at 8 a.m. and returned around 5:30 p.m. using public transportation. Surveillance data showed both father and son maintaining stable schedules with no indications of preparing to flee the state, allowing the task force to select the optimal action window. After months of finalizing the file, reviewing evidence, and coordinating with the prosecutor's office, the arrest plan was approved for simultaneous execution. At 6 a.m. on August 5, 2022, the operation was activated, marking the official execution phase of the warrants against Richard Hale and Jonathan Hale. New Jersey State Police Special Units, coordinated with the Cold Case Unit and Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, deployed at two separate locations. In Princeton Junction, 4 unmarked police vehicles surrounded the 2-story brick house in a quiet residential neighborhood where Richard had lived alone since retiring in 2019. 2 officers approached the front door, while another team covered the rear. When knocking commenced, Richard appeared in casual clothing, opened the door while asking the reason, and was immediately informed of the first-degree murder arrest warrant related to the 2009 disappearance of Aaron Bennett. Officers read full Miranda rights and requested cooperation. Richard did not resist, but showed visible tension, asking for that old thing before falling silent. While 2 officers applied handcuffs, the forensic team executed the accompanying search warrant, examining the entire basement and garage. In the rear workshop area, they seized a Lincoln Electric welder, 2 old argon tanks, and unopened cans of heat-resistant paint. Numerous receipts and a 2009 personal expense notebook were recovered from a desk drawer. The gray-silver Ford F-150, New Jersey plate NJ27G, parked in the garage, was photographed, sealed, and towed to the state lab. Preliminary inspection revealed the original frame remained intact, but the truck bed floor showed welding repairs at 2 locations, one bearing faded silver paint, matching the type found at 47 Clover Lane garage. All items were documented and sealed under chain of custody protocol. Simultaneously, the second team arrested Jonathan Hale at his workplace, a mechanical equipment maintenance company in Hoboken. At 7:15 a.m., as Jonathan parked in front of the gate, officers approached and read the warrant for obstruction of justice and evidence tampering. He appeared confused, asked for clarification, then complied without resistance. His personal phone, laptop, and work hard drives were seized for analysis. Morales, present at the temporary command center in Trenton, monitored the entire operation via radio. By 8:30 a.m., both suspects were transported to Cold Case Unit headquarters. Richard was isolated for questioning, while Jonathan was placed in administrative detention. The comprehensive report listed seized items: welder, gas tanks, heat-resistant paint, Ford truck, financial documents, receipts, and personal expense notebooks. The State Crime Lab assigned evidence codes RH-221 through RH-227, sealed, and received the items. In the arrest report, Morales noted, "Subjects cooperative, no resistance, no attorney requested at time of warrant service." Seized items consistent with 2009 crime preparation inventory. When asked about Aaron Bennett, Richard replied only, "I didn't kill anyone. She left. I had nothing to do with it," then refused further comment until counsel was present. In Hoboken, Jonathan, during initial processing, stated he knew nothing about a body being found, but agreed to provide a formal statement after legal consultation. Both were held temporarily at Mercer County Detention Center, pending preliminary hearings. Morales completed the report at 11:05 a.m. that day, confirming warrant execution followed procedure with no incidents and all evidence and property preserved under legal chain of custody. In his duty log for August 5, 2022, he wrote the final entry: "Warrants successfully executed, primary suspect and vehicle in custody." The first interrogation session took place on the afternoon of August 5, 2022, at Cold Case Unit headquarters in Trenton, led directly by Detective Henry Morales, with 2 representatives from the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office present. Richard Hale was brought into Interrogation Room 3, wearing a gray sweater and dark trousers, appearing calm but repeatedly looking downward. After legal rights were confirmed and presence of counsel offered, he agreed to answer basic questions. Morales began by recapping the investigation progress, from discovery of Aaron Bennett's DNA in the garage to recovery of the welded drum containing her remains at Pennington Industrial Park. When asked if he was involved in Aaron's death, Richard completely denied it, stating Aaron left that night. "I don't know what happened." He claimed all evidence was coincidental and that someone could have used his tools after her disappearance. When shown photographs of the Smith & Wesson .32 with matching serial number and his DNA on the trigger, Richard paused several seconds, then said the gun had been kept by Aaron, and he might have touched it years earlier when storing it in a cabinet. Regarding the welder and heat-resistant paint, he said the equipment was for woodworking projects and gate repairs, denying fabrication or welding of any drum in the garage. When reminded of the December 13, 2009 purchase receipts, Richard replied, "I don't remember. Maybe I bought it for the school." The session lasted nearly 3 hours. Morales maintained a neutral tone, presenting facts step by step, including 3D model images showing bullet trajectory and heat traces. Richard only repeated, "I don't know, but I didn't kill her." At the conclusion, he signed the transcript noting denies all allegations. Immediately afterward, Morales proceeded to interrogate Jonathan Hale, age 30, held separately in room 5. Jonathan initially remained silent, but after the public defender allowed a 5-minute private discussion with the investigator, Jonathan became visibly shaken. He stated that on the night Aaron disappeared, he heard a loud noise in the garage while upstairs. When he went down to check, he saw his father standing next to an object covered with a blanket, and the floor smelled burnt. According to him, Richard told him to help move a heavy object to the truck, saying it was a large trash container to be taken to the industrial park. Jonathan said he helped drag the container out the side door and load it onto the truck, then was told to go back to his room and ask no questions. The next morning, his father had already left for work, and the garage was cleaned. When asked if he saw inside the container, Jonathan replied, "No, I only helped when he said it was trash. I didn't think anything else." When shown photographs of the drum recovered at Pennington, Jonathan lowered his head for a long time, then confirmed it looks exactly the same. He agreed to sign a voluntary statement, coded JH-22-1, acknowledging he assisted his father in transporting the metal drum, but claiming he did not know a body was inside. The statement was witnessed by 2 legal officers. Morales cross-referenced the statement with forensic results. Aaron's DNA in the garage, welding soot and paint matching the drum, drag marks on the floor, matching the direction to the side door, everything perfectly consistent with Jonathan's description. Additionally, the period Richard's phone lost signal matched the time frame Jonathan described the truck leaving the house. The interrogation summary report concluded, Richard Hale denies all actions, citing coincidence and memory loss. Jonathan Hale admits assisting in transport of evidence, statement fully consistent with forensic results and location data. Both suspects were transferred back to Mercer County Detention Center at 9:40 p.m. that day. Interrogation transcripts were filed with the prosecution package, confirming the statements aligned with physical evidence recovered during the investigation. After completing all interrogation sessions and collecting full statements, the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office officially initiated the prosecution preparation process. On August 12, 2022, Chief Prosecutor Dana Whitfield convened a meeting with the Cold Case Unit investigation team, the Forensics Department, and legal experts to compile the case file. Interrogation reports, forensic results, witness statements, and physical evidence were organized into a prosecution dossier consisting of 27 volumes, totaling more than 1,800 pages. Based on the investigation results, Whitfield decided to charge Richard Hale with 2 counts, first-degree murder under New Jersey Criminal Code 2C11, 3A1, and abuse of a corpse under 2C22-1. For Jonathan Hale, the prosecutor proposed charging him with obstruction of justice under 2C29-1 for assisting his father in moving evidence and failing to tell the truth throughout the investigation. The indictment decision was signed the same day and forwarded to the Mercer County Court to request a trial order. Before the file was transferred, Jonathan's court-appointed public defender contacted the prosecutor's office, offering to negotiate a reduced charge in exchange for Jonathan's cooperation as the prosecution's key witness. After 2 private sessions, Jonathan agreed to provide a full statement about the night of December 13, 2009, confirming that his father had asked him to help move a metal drum, in exchange for which the prosecutor agreed to consider dropping the more serious felony charge and recommend a suspended sentence. The cooperation agreement was documented in writing on August 15, bearing the signatures of Jonathan, his attorney, Prosecutor Whitfield, and a legal witness. Under the terms of the agreement, Jonathan was required to testify truthfully in court, provide all information related to Richard's actions, and turn over any personal data still stored on old phones or online accounts that could assist the investigation. After signing, Jonathan was transferred to a protected witness detention area operated by the state. For Richard, the prosecutor issued a no-bail detention order, citing the severity of the charges and flight risk. Morales completed the final prosecution summary report on August 17, outlining all evidence: Aaron Bennett's DNA identified in the garage and the metal drum, Richard's DNA on the trigger of the gun, an independent witness confirming the suspect vehicle at a gas station, receipts for welding equipment and heat-resistant paint purchased just before the disappearance, Jonathan's statement about moving the drum, along with the 3D crime scene reconstruction and timeline that matched electronic data. The report concluded, "The chain of physical, testimonial, and forensic evidence is consistent, proving premeditated criminal conduct and a years-long effort to conceal it." On August 19, the Mercer County Court accepted the indictment and scheduled the initial trial. Morales handed over the complete file to the prosecution, along with a list of 42 potential witnesses, including forensic technicians, DNA analysts, hardware store managers, and the Evergreen fuel gas station attendant. Before leaving the office, he signed the Cold Case Unit's investigation closure report, the final line reading, "Prosecution file complete. Richard Hale indicted for first-degree murder and abuse of corpse. Jonathan Hale, indicted for obstruction of justice, has agreed to serve as the prosecution's primary witness." The initial trial in the case of Richard Hale opened on the morning of October 10, 2022, at the Mercer County Court, presided over by Judge Eleanor Strauss. The courtroom was under tight security. Media were allowed to attend, but filming was restricted. Richard Hale sat at the defense table with his two attorneys, while Jonathan Hale appeared as the prosecution's key witness, pursuant to the cooperation agreement. A jury of 12 was selected after 3 days of voir dire, representing various segments of Mercer County's population. At the start of the trial, Chief Prosecutor Dana Whitfield read the indictment, describing Richard Hale's alleged crimes on 2 counts, first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. She summarized the investigation that had spanned more than 12 years, from the 2009 disappearance to the 2022 discovery of the body and DNA evidence. After preliminary procedures, the prosecution began presenting physical and forensic evidence in chronological order. The first exhibit was the forensic report, confirming Aaron Bennett's DNA in the garage at 47 Clover Lane, along with analysis of fibers from an electric blanket showing burn marks and human protein. Forensic technician Megan Hollis was called to the stand and explained the DNA extraction process using next-generation sequencing technology, confirming a 100% genetic match with Aaron Bennett's reference sample. Next, the prosecution introduced results from the Smith & Wesson .32 revolver, serial number 2417J6, registered to Aaron, but bearing only Richard Hale's DNA on the trigger. A large screen projection displayed the 3D crime scene reconstruction, showing the bullet trajectory, firing direction, victim position, and luminol reactive areas, consistent with the theory that the victim was shot in the garage. Morales, who led the investigation, testified as an expert witness, detailing how the cold case unit used DNA data, cell records, and forensic timelines to establish the sequence of events. He described the events of the night of December 13, 2009, cross-referencing cell phone data, showing Richard traveling between Clover Lane and the Pennington industrial area at the same time Aaron's signal disappeared. The prosecution then introduced financial evidence, including receipts for a welder, heat-resistant paint, and an electric blanket purchased at 3 different stores on the night of the crime. Surveillance footage from Pennington Tools and Supply showed a man in a dark jacket, identified as Richard Hale, pushing a cart containing a welder and an argon tank. The store manager confirmed the electronic receipt signature matched the defendant's banking records. Next, independent witness Raymond Lewis, an Evergreen Fuel gas station employee, testified that he saw a silver-gray Ford F-150 parked at the station at 4:30 a.m. on December 14, 2009, with a license plate matching Richard's vehicle. Raymond recalled the driver using the payphone for about a minute before leaving. The 47-second call log was matched exactly to Richard's phone records. The prosecution then called Jonathan Hale to the stand. In his testimony, he admitted helping his father move a heavy metal drum from the garage to a pickup truck on the night his stepmother disappeared. He said his father told him it was a big trash container that needed to be dumped, and he had no idea a body was inside. When asked if he recognized the drum later recovered in Pennington, Jonathan replied, "Yes, it's exactly the same one," his voice slightly trembling. The courtroom fell completely silent as images of the drum were displayed. The prosecution concluded its case with a forensic timeline diagram showing key timestamps: 2047, welder purchase; 2112, heat-resistant paint purchase; 2137, Aaron's last call; 2230, estimated time of shooting in the garage; 347, industrial park gate access; 438, payphone call at the gas station. The combined data revealed an unbroken 8-hour sequence of actions. In closing, Whitfield told the jury, "Every piece of evidence, biological, electronic, financial, and testimonial, points in only one direction. Aaron Bennett was murdered in her own home by the person who was supposed to protect her." When the prosecution rested, Judge Strauss adjourned for the day so the defense could begin its response the following morning, and the trial record was temporarily sealed to preserve the chain of custody for subsequent proceedings. On the morning of October 11, 2022, the trial moved to the defense phase. Richard Hale's lead attorney, Thomas Greer, opened with a statement lasting more than 20 minutes, asserting that the entire case rested on a chain of assumptions stitched together from incomplete fragments. Greer argued that DNA analysis of samples stored for over 12 years could not guarantee absolute accuracy due to possible molecular degradation in storage conditions and the risk of false positives. He cited scientific papers showing that next-generation sequencing on degraded samples can produce errors as high as 0.02%, and that a tiny lab mistake can send an innocent man to prison for murder. He further contended that Richard's DNA on the trigger proved nothing, since he was the legal owner of the gun and could have handled it many times in the past. The defense attorney also challenged Jonathan Hale's testimony as unreliable, claiming it stemmed from self-preservation motives after securing immunity, adding that the son wanted to save himself, and in return he had to say whatever the prosecution wanted to hear. Greer criticized the 3D reconstruction as a programmed product designed to incriminate, noting the absence of independent data proving the shot was fired in the garage, especially since the bullet itself was never recovered. He objected to showing the jury images of the drum and its contents, arguing they created strong emotional impact and skewed objective judgment. Greer asked the judge to exclude forensic evidence deemed unverifiable in origin. He emphasized, "No witness saw Mr. Hale fire the gun, there were no fingerprints on the weapon," and concluding murder based solely on DNA fragments lacks legal foundation. After the defense rested, prosecutor Dana Whitfield rose to rebut each point. She explained that the NGS technology used by the New Jersey State Lab is a federal standard, certified by the Department of Justice and applied in over 200 cases since 2016. She presented independent confirmations from 3 separate laboratories, all showing complete DNA matches with Aaron Bennett's profile. She stated clearly, "There is no possibility of error. The victim's genome matches down to every segment, and the defendant's DNA on the trigger is biological evidence that cannot be explained away by denial. Regarding Jonathan's testimony, the prosecution demonstrated its reliability by correlating it with forensic findings. Drag marks on the garage floor matched the direction Jonathan described toward the side door. Paint, welding residue, and electric blanket fibers all originated from that area. Moreover, Jonathan's account aligned with phone and GPS data he had no knowledge of at the time of his statement. For the 3D model, the prosecution produced certification from the Rutgers Institute of Forensic Science confirming the software used only real measurements taken from the garage, with no speculative elements. When questioned about the missing bullet, Whitfield explained that the west garage wall had been replaced after the crime, so the absence of the slug did not undermine the conclusion, as trajectory and blood evidence were sufficient. She redisplayed overlays combining forensic maps with electronic data, illustrating how independent evidence streams, phone signals, DNA, and physical items converged in the same time frame. No single link stands alone, she said. Every piece fits perfectly to form one picture. Richard Hale murdered Erin Bennett in the garage, welded her body inside a metal drum, and buried it in Pennington Industrial Park. When the rebuttal concluded, Judge Strauss noted the arguments, ruled that all evidence would retain its full evidentiary value, and allowed the jury to continue hearing additional testimony in the following days. The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. Both sides had completed their core arguments. DNA, witnesses, forensics, and timeline, all converging on a single question: whether that evidence was sufficient to prove a crime concealed for 13 years. After 7 consecutive days of trial, all evidence and testimony had been fully presented. On October 18, 2022, Judge Eleanor Strauss declared the evidentiary phase closed and handed the case to the jury for deliberation. The 12 jurors were sequestered in a private room at 10 a.m., taking with them the complete evidence file, forensic maps, 3D models, interrogation transcripts, and witness statements. Deliberations lasted nearly 11 hours. According to the court clerk, the jurors carefully reviewed every chain of evidence: Erin Bennett's DNA in the garage and drum, Richard's DNA on the trigger, receipts for the welder and heat-resistant paint, Jonathan's testimony matching the drag marks, and the independent witness who saw Richard's Ford F-150 at the gas station early the next morning. At approximately 8:30 p.m., the bell signaling a verdict rang through the courthouse. The courtroom fell silent as the jury returned. The foreperson, Marjorie Kent, a retired high school teacher, handed the folded verdict form to the clerk. Judge Strauss read aloud, "On the charge of first-degree murder of Erin Bennett, the jury unanimously finds the defendant Richard Hale guilty. On the charge of abuse of corpse, the jury also finds the defendant guilty. Recommended sentence, 25 years to life, with no parole eligibility for a minimum of 25 years. A wave of murmurs swept the room, while Richard Hale sat motionless, hands clenched. Defense attorney Thomas Greer lowered his head, and prosecutor Dana Whitfield gave only a slight nod, showing no emotion. When the judge asked if the defendant had any final words, Richard stood and said briefly, "I didn't do it. I didn't kill her." His voice trembled but was clear. Then he sat down. The judge acknowledged the statement and announced that the sentence would take effect after administrative formalities were completed. The second part of the verdict concerned Jonathan Hale. After reviewing his testimony and cooperation agreement, the jury found Jonathan guilty of obstruction of investigation, but imposed a 3-year suspended sentence with community supervision. This decision was based on his full cooperation with prosecutors and truthful testimony that helped solve the case. Upon hearing the sentence, Jonathan bowed his head, tears rolling down his cheeks, while many in the gallery let out quiet sighs. Judge Strauss read the final portion of the ruling. Mercer County Court recognizes the efforts of the investigative agencies and the cold case unit in restoring justice for the victim after 13 years. The Erin Bennett case is officially classified as a homicide, no longer a missing person file. The verdict was concluded at 8:47 p.m. Richard Hale was led away in handcuffs as camera flashes illuminated the hallway. Jonathan was kept an additional 10 minutes to sign community supervision paperwork before leaving with his attorney. Outside the courthouse, Prosecutor Whitfield gave a brief statement to the press. Justice does not vanish with time. It simply waits for those patient enough to find it. The sentence was uploaded to the New Jersey court system that same night, reading, Richard Hale, guilty of first-degree murder, sentence, 25 years to life. Jonathan Hale, guilty of obstruction of investigation, 3-year suspended sentence. All procedures were finalized before midnight, closing the first phase of proceedings in a case that had been buried for more than 13 years. Immediately after the sentence took effect, the New Jersey Cold Case Unit began finalizing its post-investigation report, summarizing the entire process of reopening, forensic analysis, and prosecution of the Aaron Bennett case. The report began drafting on October 22, 2022, under the direct supervision of Unit Commander Lieutenant Colonel Harold Crane, along with forensic investigators, DNA technicians, and legal advisors. The document exceeded 300 pages and included a detailed evaluation of investigative procedures, professional errors from the initial 2009 phase, and proposed systemic reforms for handling missing person cases. The opening section explained why the case had remained dormant for 12 years. The Aaron Bennett file was originally misclassified as missing adult, no foul play suspected due to insufficient direct evidence and inadequate scene assessment, failure to recover the bullet, document the scene before moving evidence, and examine the fresh paint in the garage were the primary reasons the case stalled. The report also assigned responsibility to agencies involved in 2009, criticizing the Mercer County Crime Scene Unit for failing to create detailed diagrams and overlooking a second luminol reactive area, and the Sheriff's Office for closing the file prematurely without checking peripheral factors, including location data and phone records. The Cold Case Unit concluded that had the original samples been tested with modern technology or stored properly, the case could have been solved a decade earlier. In the operational analysis section, Detective Henry Morales outlined the re-examination process, applying next-generation DNA sequencing, 3D reconstruction, and electronic data to build a complete forensic timeline. This marked the first time in Cold Case Unit history that a missing person case was solved through the simultaneous integration of 4 independent forensic data sources. The second part of the report focused on improving missing person protocols statewide. The Cold Case Unit proposed creating a New Jersey standard missing person investigation guideline that would mandate 360-degree scene videography before evidence collection, immediate collection of family DNA reference samples upon report, periodic cross-checking of victim phone and financial records, and examination of paint, welding residue, and unusual heat marks in any case involving a garage or enclosed space. The report also recommended establishing a regional Northeast evidence bank linking forensic labs to share unidentified samples and prevent loss over time. The third section evaluated societal and legal impact, citing the Aaron Bennett case as an exemplary demonstration of the criminal justice system's ability to revive cold cases. Lieutenant Colonel Crane wrote in the preface, "This case proves that no crime can remain hidden forever if storage, analysis, and data connection protocols are properly maintained." The report concluded with recommendations to the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety to apply NGS technology to all pending cases from 1990 to 2015 and re-examine at least 200 cases with untested biological samples. It also proposed mandatory training for local investigators, emphasizing scene preservation and digital data retention. On October 30, 2022, the document was released internally and forwarded to the Department of Law and Public Safety for implementation approval. In the appendix, the Cold Case Unit updated the status of file CC09147, Aaron Bennett, female Caucasian, 33. Classification, homicide. Solved. Offender, Richard Hale, convicted October 2022. The final line of the report read, "The lessons from the Aaron Bennett case have become the new standard for every missing person investigation in New Jersey. Every mistake of 2009 has been corrected by the justice of 2022. The story of the Aaron Bennett case is not merely a criminal file closed after 13 years, but also a mirror reflecting how contemporary American society views justice, perseverance, and faith in modern forensic science. In a context where the United States is facing thousands of unsolved cold cases, the fact that the Cold Case Unit of New Jersey used next-generation DNA technology, 3D crime scene reconstruction, and electronic data analysis to uncover the truth for Aaron demonstrates the power of science combined with human determination. A major lesson drawn from this case is justice doesn't always arrive on time, but it can still arrive if society refuses to give up. The early closure of the case in 2009, due to authorities at the time dismissing minor traces such as fresh paint or welding soot marks, reflects the dangers of subjectivity and the lack of coordination between agencies. In modern American life, this serves as a reminder of the importance of asking questions and persistently seeking the truth, whether in professional, legal, or personal contexts. Another detail, the conviction of Richard Hale, thanks to DNA evidence on the gun's trigger and phone data from more than a decade earlier, shows that every action leaves a trace, and the truth may be buried but can never be erased. The lesson here is not only for law enforcement, but for all citizens: trust in transparency, stand firm in ethical values, and never let time blur the line between right and wrong. In a country like the United States, where faith in justice is the foundation of society, the Aaron Bennett case is a reminder that justice only exists when people never stop searching for it. Thank you for following the journey to restore justice for Aaron Bennett, a case that proves the truth may be buried, but it never disappears. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can explore other cold case files together, where the past is still waiting to speak.